All right, let's just see. All right, that looks okay. Let me just. Interesting. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. Okay. All right. Good, good, good. All right. Let me just make sure. You know what I didn't check? I got to check my OBS levels real quick. That's fine. And I got to switch my audio to. All right. So you guys should be able to hear everything now. That should be all good. Nice. Sweet. What's up, Logan? Okay, so what I'm going to try to do, guys, because... So I have... Logan, why don't you go ahead and pop in the... So we're not actually going to use the YouTube chat. Because... something was messed up with the embeds on the website. So I'm actually... Right now, I'm currently looking at the Discord, and I'm also looking at the YouTube chat. So I figured just to make things easy, we'll all use the Discord chat. So it's just easier so I don't have to try to have both, going back and forth between both chats. And that way you guys will also be able to see what each other is saying. So, there's not one person asking a question on one side and then someone else asking a question on the other side. Does that sound good? And there's probably going to be a little bit of a delay. So I'm just going to, like I said, I'm not going to stop for too long. Try to keep it moving. And yeah, so we're gonna look at a bunch of different stuff today. Logan, who is Electro in Discord, sent me a bunch of stuff, so we're gonna take a look at it and kind of constructively just try and dissect how we can improve on it. Pretty much everything he's been doing is actually coming out really, really good, really solid. Even since we ended the program at FCE, like what was that like? At your school, that's what FCE is, like at Westwoods, like what, a couple months ago or so, a few months ago now. You've been coming a really long way, dude, so great job with that. Really, really good. So we're gonna look at a couple of his projects right now. So let's see what we got here. Logan, did you have anything specific that you want to start with? Because right now I'm looking at, on my desktop, we got Clam Chowder, Dank Yoshi, Cats and Dogs, and Peace. So if there's anything specific that you want to work on, and Cam, how did I do what exactly? Oh, you know what? I'm still... There we go. All right. Sorry, I was still coming through my... Audio was still coming through my speakers. All right, Cats and Dogs. Nice. What is this for? Well, so what I do in Torches Academy is... Cam, so you know how like I did that in-person session with you guys? And I kind of gave you guys the... gave you guys like a quick crash course on FL Studio and how to do some of this stuff. Well, this Discord, Torches Academy, I also teach this stuff online. So this is kind of like more of an ongoing program, and the way that it works is, you know, we fundraise by you guys can buy pro memberships if you want. You can also use the free membership, just like you guys are doing, you know, right now. Like the Discord is free, watching the stream is free, but you know, the way that we separate it is the pro members get some special stuff on the website. Like we're planning on building a bunch of like sound packs and stuff like that, and which are currently in progress. You know, a bunch of different sound packs. They're also the only ones that can submit their material. So like the free members can watch the material, but the pro members are the ones that actually, like, you know, Logan, who is a pro member, sent me a bunch of his music. So that's what we're going to work on today in stream. You know, so he gets a more direct, you know, like more direct instruction. Like we'll actually work on his projects. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the separation. So we do like these online classrooms, online live streams to kind of, you know, work on stuff together and keep in touch. And, you know, obviously I'm, you know, more than open to help you guys out if you ever need help with stuff, you know. So Logan said we're going to work on Cats and Dogs. So let me get that one open and we'll listen to what we got. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Hopefully it'll open okay. More. Ooh, wow. Do I need to update my FL? Shoot. Okay, well, looks like it loaded okay. I didn't even know that they had a new patch out. I'll worry about it later, but okay. So I'll download that patch later. I mean, yeah, for the most part, like if you guys have any questions about what we're doing in here, you know, most of the time what I like to do is just kind of open this up and we focus on anything from a compositional standpoint, like the writing, the arrangement, mixing, and mastering, you know, are kind of like all the big ones, you know. So it looks like, just because this is looking pretty like flat, it looks like we'll be able to do a little bit of mixing, which I think is really great. You know, I don't know how far. We talked about that a little bit at Westwoods, but not too much. So this is actually a really good opportunity to talk about that. So I'm just gonna play this as it is. You guys obviously let me know if anything is too loud or too quiet. I can adjust things in here so that you guys can hear it okay, and we'll just listen and then we'll talk about it. All right. All right, so actually I have some thoughts right off the bat, right? So this is coming out pretty cool. It's got kind of like a dark, almost like underscore, kind of like theatrical feel to it. You know, like something you could use like in a film or something like that, which is pretty neat. So what I would say, right? So like when you're writing music, a lot of the time what you want to do is you want to keep in mind that they say like a rule of thumb when you're writing music is people lose interest pretty fast, right? So a lot of the time, what you want to try to do is try to incorporate some new stuff, like, you know, in the first, like at the most, like 30 seconds, you know? So I was almost kind of feeling like this intro is a little bit long, and then you have some good stuff coming in over here. So I almost want to hear that come in a little bit faster. You know, if we're looking at like so this song is probably like it's like 5 minutes and 16, 17 seconds. And a lot of the songs I write are usually like 2 or 3 minutes, you know? So this song is already pretty long. I feel like you can definitely afford to do something like this and make that intro a little bit shorter, you know? Because you kind of want to get to the, you know, you did all this good stuff over here. You want to kind of get to that, you know, before people lose interest. You know, longer isn't always necessarily better, you know? I was almost kind of feeling the same way with like if we did something like this, right? And you introduce something new every like 4 bars rather than every 8. You know, now I'm gonna kind of preface this too with saying that, you know, what I'm doing is not gospel. You know, these aren't like rules that you guys absolutely have to follow. These are just kind of things that I've learned through experience, you know, and in retrospect, you know, like maybe I did something and someone kind of gave me this same sort of advice, and I just kind of worked on my own songwriting through trial and error, you know. So I feel like my job is just to kind of get you guys that information faster, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So I'm almost kind of feeling like we can shorten this whole section a little bit. And because like I said, 5 minutes is pretty long. You know, I think we can afford to do that. So another thing that we did sort of talk about a little bit in that's interesting. Now, because this is a sample, I think it just always kind of sits on the same sample there, right? So you're kind of outlining, if I'm not mistaken, let me open up a little piano or something here. All right, something that you guys have too. Where's like, there we go. Something simple. And why can't I hear this? Huh. Interesting. Okay. Piano's not working. Let's try. I haven't used that in a while. We'll do a... you know what? I know you guys won't have this, but I want to just keep it simple. So, or you might have this. I don't know. But it doesn't come stock with FL Studio. You know, but you guys will be able to use anything. I just wanted to get something that's like a piano. There we go. Just a different synth. So. So your root is actually F here. If I match that note, right? So you have an F and a C is kind of making up that sample. So Cam, yeah, you can buy this program for, I think the cheapest option is like $100. But then there's a couple, you know, it scales upward. There's a 200, a 300, and like a 700 or 800, and you kind of get more stuff with every version. Personally, I recommend at least the 200 one, because in the 100 one, it's just sequencing software. You actually can't use any vocals or audio clips. So I think even something like this you wouldn't be able to do. You'd only be able to make patterns and stuff like that. And yeah, I know, you know, $200 when you're your guys' age is a lot of money, you know, but hey, Christmas present, birthday present, you know, graduation, any event you guys can any event that you guys can think of, you know. But it's a good investment though, because you also get lifetime updates with this. So you only ever have to buy this one time, which is pretty neat, right? So Logan, you're kind of outlining, Now, even in the sample, it says, you know, it says that this is a C, but that's just not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing F is the root, right? So, see it, Cam? So what we could do now, right, is I think to kind of make this interesting, you know, oh, you know what? Never mind. So this is the sample Looming Orchestra. So actually these ones that say C, these probably are actually C. Yeah, these are actually C. Okay. So this one wasn't really lying. So this is an F, right? So what we can do from that point forward is build chords are in the key of F minor, right? So I'm kind of hearing a F minor chord, right? Now, once you match that root note, right? And that just takes some practice, to be honest with you. There's not really a great way to identify what the root of the note is. It just kind of sounds like the anchor of the chord, you know, if that makes any sense at all. Like if I just kind of search through, if I play the track and then search through these notes, I'm just hearing that one. You can just kind of feel it, you know? So once you've identified the root note, you can also, if you ever forget, you can always pull a scale from up here to see what the notes are going to be in minor, right? Like we can go to melodic scales. Do they have a minor? Natural minor. There we go. So there you go. There's all your notes in... Actually, that's... Yep. Yeah, that's right. So there's all your notes in natural minor. Oop. Right? So when you're first kind of starting out, it might be kind of good to keep something like this handy so you know which notes to use. But I think you remember in what we talked about with the triad lesson, you know, that we did, where when you want to build chords, basically what you're doing is you're taking you pick a note. So like if we're going to use the 1 chord, right? We're going to take this, we're going to skip the next one, take the 3, skip the next one, take the 5. So we have 1, 3, 5, right? So if we want to build a 1 chord, we're going to go F, A flat, or G sharp as it's labeled, right? And C. So here's a 1 chord. Right? Now, in this case, you know, basically you're using a sample that's kind of pedaling on F and C, right? So there aren't too many other chords that you can make out of F and C if we're just using basic triads, right? But you could even do like a 6 chord and the C would kind of act as the 7. So now in this case, we're going to use a 6, right? So we're going to grab that C sharp, and again, we're just going to use the same little skip trick, right? So C sharp, we're going to skip D sharp and then go back around. So we're going to need an F, and then we're going to skip G, and we're going to go to G sharp or A flat again, right? See? And then if you want to, you can add that C, because that's still going to be in the sample that you have over here, right? So see, and that kind of works. It sounds a little bit more, you know, like you can start taking it different places, you know. Or maybe even if at some point you want to cut the sample and just go to something like that, you know? So now same thing in this case. We got to sort of match the notes here, right? So that's on a C. And now remember that the root of our 6 chord was C sharp. So maybe even we can try like going between C and C sharp like that, instead of just hanging on that same note, right? See, and that's how you can kind of start to create some interesting progressions, you know, out of chords and stuff like that. So that's another thing that I might recommend is, you know, it feels like the track was sort of pedaling on that F in that C, you know, and what you could do is if you bring in some other instruments, like you could do, now I'm using a Nexus here, but you guys can use like a, you know, you could do Citrus is always a safe bet. You know, if you want to pick something out in Citrus, like a cool little pad or something like that. There's lots of stuff you can do. You know, so let's even try dropping what we did over here into a, instead of using Nexus, we'll use this. And then even right here, right? Rather than having a C sharp right there, let's pick another note out of that second chord, right? So we're just going back and forth between, oh, that's right, we muted that one. A 1 chord, which is F, A flat, C, right? And the 6 chord with the added 7 on top, right? So we have D flat, F, A flat, C. Right? So maybe even we can move that back up to the octave right there, you know? And maybe we can pick another note for the 4th note in this, just to kind of keep things interesting. You know, we have an F there, we have a C sharp. We can also do an A flat, you know. We can try going down. Try the F. See, now we sort of have to get this stuff to reflect as well, you know. So this is just kind of, you know, again, like I said, this isn't, you don't have to do things this way. I'm just kind of giving you some examples of how you can, you know, switch some things up, you know, get some variation and stuff like that. Who's still with me, by the way? Nice, okay. Do you have any questions so far, Logan? What do you think? You know, because this whole, everything I'm doing right now, like I said, you have to keep in mind that, you know, I'm just kind of treating this as if this were something I was working on. You know, this is kind of where I might go with the composition, but there's 1,000 different directions you can go with this. You know, there really is. And it's really, you know, you kind of make the executive decisions on what you want to do and how you want this to sound. You know, this isn't necessarily like what you should or have to do with the song. You know, I think my goal is just to give you guys options, you know. That's kind of what I'm here for. So it's also kind of sounding a little bit darker than it was before, too. Don't know. That's okay. So what do you think so far? Is some of that stuff kind of making sense? You know, that's sort of an important thing to get under your belt too. And you've done a really good job with you know, this is kind of a tricky example to sort of show you you know, because I've been listening to some of your stuff, and I think this kind of keeping the coherency between the patterns like this is something that I think you're already, like, you know, doing pretty well in some of the stuff that I've heard before, you know, and just, you know, creating variations and different variations, different patterns, different melodies and instruments coming in and out. I think one thing that'll help you quite a bit is just to look at the notes that are being used in, like, these basic triads, right? And try to sort of follow those. Basically what you want is you want all of your patterns sort of outlining the same thing, you know? So let's actually, you know what? Let's try another example here. So I kind of want to see what else we got, because we have four of your tracks, and I think, you know, we could spend, actually I can kind of let you decide, because we could spend more time on this, or we can kind of go through some of them just, you know, a little bit at a time and try to look at all of them, you know, rather than spending too much time on one or the other. What do you think? Some of them ahead of time. Okay, cool. So let's try another one. Let's try, what do you think? What should we do next? So we got Peace, Dank Yoshi, and Clam Chowder. Okay, sweet. That was actually the one I was just looking at. So, you know, just in case this, like, you wanted this for any reason, I'll save this as a different version, so we have both of them. So if for whatever reason you wanted to take a look at what I'm doing later, I can always send these back to you. That's usually what I do with the live stream stuff. All right. Luckily, it doesn't really look like we're running into any issues with the version thing. All right. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, I like this one. Ooh, nice. That's excellent.
Lamb. Chowder.
dude, this is awesome. This is really, really good. I like that a lot, and I like what you're doing. That's so, you know, I think this is the perfect spot to start talking about mixing a little bit, which is kind of what you kind of did a little bit of it over here. But so the idea when you're mixing, right, is you always want to give yourself room, you know, going up and going down. Because at this point, see, like if we wanted to turn up insert 7, we're kind of maxed there, right? So, and I'll show you kind of how to, yeah, this one came out really, really good. I like this one a lot. This is excellent. So I love what you're doing up here. You're definitely kind of pulling from that. Did you end up watching that or downloading the whole Complextro thing that I have up on the website? Because you're definitely nailing it. If you did. That's pretty solid. So the good thing, right, is you already have pretty much all of this stuff linked up. You know, I don't know if this one is doing anything, but I'm just going to throw that on for good measure. And then we have a bunch of this audio stuff that isn't set yet, right? So just for the sake of having control over every little thing, right? Now you can see how this mixer is probably going to get looking pretty crazy. And that's the one hard part. Well, not the one hard part. There's lots of hard parts. But one of the hard parts about this genre is there's just a lot of stuff to worry about, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. So when you're mixing, right, what you want to do is you want to get into a good habit of not listening to anything too loud, right? What you can do is you want to control the loudness with your speakers, right? So your mixer, think of this as more of a tool, as like, yeah, let's turn it up as loud as it goes, right? What you actually want to do is take all this stuff and let's just turn it down like this, right? Now you're probably thinking, okay, well now it's going to be like half as loud as it was, right? But that's kind of what your master bus here is for. You know, if you need this to be a little bit louder, like if all this stuff got way too quiet, you can open up something like a limiter and use the gain. See that? So we kind of want to keep it in a spot. We're not going to have a ceiling on it, because see, what a ceiling is going to do is as you bring this ceiling down, it's going to compress the sound, right? See that? See, and basically with this white line represents the compression that's happening. So basically your song is getting very compressed right now, and that's not really what we want. So I'm actually going to turn the ceiling all the way up so the sound doesn't actually touch it. And then we can control the volume with the gain, right? So this is really just a volume right now, so we can kind of hear what's going on. All right. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to start with probably just the drums, right? So let's just get a little section here. All right, so here's your kick right there, right? So what I'm going to start doing is I'm just going to kind of play through this section, and I'm just going to start adding things in and adjusting the level so that it's kind of a good match to where the kick is, right? See, now this, I kind of have to turn that snare off to here. Kind of want to get a good mix between those guys too. All right, so this one is, I'm going to save that one for later because that one's pretty loud, right? Okay, so this is just kind of like another kick. All right, so let's see what else we got going on here. Oh, there it is. Okay. It's kind of tricky. You have to find out kind of like where everything is. All right, so let's see the next thing to pop up. Okay, so this guy. I'm actually gonna turn this kick down a little bit.
Louder.
Alright, so now we have to keep going to find some of the other stuff, right? See, so this guy was coming in a little bit loud. Alright, that's maybe about right. And we can kind of just get everything in like a general area. I like the little car horn sounding guy. There's something over here. See, so really at this point, you know, our goal is just to kind of get everything in a ballpark where it sounds pretty good when you're listening to things all at once, right? And now keep in mind, we're only doing this section so far, you know, so we still have to kind of go back now that we have the, you know, if we're happy with the drums, we can go back and yeah, that sounds pretty okay right there. Let's see what this guy's doing. But you know, this is kind of how I like to get a basis for my mix. You know, just kind of add stuff in. You know, start with something very, very universal, like the kick or the snare, or maybe it's a hi-hat. You know, whatever kind of the song calls for, and then kind of just start adding things in one piece at a time, and just kind of saying, okay, is that too loud? Is that too quiet? You know, making those decisions sort of as you go. And then once you have a good rough mix here, we can kind of go through as a whole and see, you know, if anything is sticking out a little bit too loud or too quiet, and, you know, make adjustments from there. Ooh, let's see what's going on over here. See, like that looks like it's coming through pretty loud, but it didn't sound that loud to me. See, like that felt a little bit loud. So we can turn that down a tiny bit. It's a little better. A little more volume there. I feel like that's gonna need a little bit more volume too. And so your goal here is kind of get to a point where you can listen to the whole song and everything sounds pretty good and level, right? That guy was a little loud.
Lab. Lab. Lab.
Nice, there we go. So this might be a pretty, you know, like a decent rough mix here, right? So Logan, in this genre, right, there's another really cool trick that I'm going to show you that if by chance you forget how to do this, I do have a lesson on, let's bring down this EQ a little bit too. That might be why things sound a little bit muffled. Ooh, see, I kind of changed. In fact, I might kind of go. Now you can also, which I noticed you did in the other song, you can kind of pan these things out a little bit too. Like we might want our hi-hat to be coming a little bit out of the right side or the left side. You know? Usually kick and snare I leave centered. A lot of these synths and stuff too I like to leave centered. You know, like the electronic music kind of becomes more of like a I know I don't have my webcam on right now, so I can't really like visualize it for you guys with my hands, but rather than kind of going left and right, it's more of like a wideness versus narrow, you know, like the kick. If I do this and see, we have a stereo separation knob where we can change how separate it is or how narrow it is. It's pretty much always the same, right? Because it's pretty much a mono sound, right? It's pretty much just coming through the middle. But some of these synths, so like this one's also pretty mono. But now, for example, if we were to go up, that's just a sound effect. So we can't really do too much with that because that's already set in stone. But all right, how about like these pianos, these chords, right? I could come over to the effects tab. See, all right, so you have a chorus like all the way up, so you could probably definitely hear the difference if I do this. See, that's, you might not hear it as much unless you're wearing headphones, but this is coming through very narrow and mono, like very centered, and then this is coming through very wide. So I wouldn't, you know, personally, I wouldn't recommend going super crazy with the stereo separation there because it's already kind of spaced out because you have a chorus on it, right? So if anything, I would just kind of, you know, maybe some of this stuff, it's just something you want to keep in your mind, right? So there's another trick, which I got a little bit sidetracked there for a second, but Logan, you can do this, and like I said, I have a couple tutorials on the website if you need to check back about how to do this, but it's called side chaining, right? And this is really important to dance music, you know, especially this kind of music, because it's sort of like what glues everything together a little bit. But essentially what it is it's kind of like that pump effect, right? So now this may take a minute, right? Because what we would have to do is, you have a kick here, right? That's going on the 1, 2, 3, and the 4 most of the time. It takes some breaks, which is fine there. But pretty much we'd want to take any instrument, you know, not so much drums, but any of the instruments, which we have a lot. We have a lot of things kind of happening here. So what we would have to do is we'd have to find all of these. So 20, right? And what we're going to do is, so within the mixer, right, basically we have everything set to one insert right now, right? Let's mark 50 as our, let's just rename this. This is our instrument bus. So we're gonna send everything rather than sending it back to the master. See how like insert 1 is sending out into the master, right? Rather than sending all of the instruments to the master, what we're going to do is we're going to send them all to 50, and then we're going to send 50 out to the master. See, so 50 is already sending out to the master right here. So all we have to do is find all of our instruments, which again, because there's so many, this might take a minute or two, but like 20, for example, we go to 20, and now you can do this a couple different ways. You can click off there and just click on 50, just like that, or you can just go 20, find, you know, let's give this a color too because it's kind of hard to see. There we go. Yep, see, I missed. That was one off, right? So you can either just click it on and click it off from the master, or you can right click it and hit route to this track only, right? And that'll automatically take it off the master. Right, so let's figure out what this one is. So that's 21. Right click, route only. Boom. All set. And what do we have here? Is that the same thing? Yeah, that's 21. We got 20. So 8. Number 8 is that guy there, right? So we'll right click, route to this track only. Now basically, you know, rather than doing all of these, which is going to take me, you know, quite some time to get that all set up, I'll just show you with what we have so far, right? So basically what a sidechain is again, it gives you that sort of pump effect, right? So there's a couple different ways to do this. The way that I like doing it is with a peak controller. But I'll show you guys an even easier way too. Now you could do this with a gross beat, right? Notice if we go to like patterns, there's actually a sidechain gross beat, and see how it dips and then pumps back in. See? Now, personally, I think this sidechain is a little too much. I might do something a little less drastic.
Lab.
But that's really important to dance music. It kind of gives you, sometimes it's hard to notice if you're just listening. But you know, really what this does is it makes a lot of, your kick is very important, right? Because in dance music, you know, the kick and the bass is sort of like the drive of your whole track. And basically what a sidechain does is, because your kick is on the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4, see how it's kind of cutting out a little space because it's dropping the volume down. So it's cutting the space out of everything else so that your kick has a little bit more room, right? So that's kind of the idea behind the whole sidechaining thing.
Lab.
And even if, you know, if you listen to a lot of, like any of my tracks, I don't know, let's see. I probably do this on almost all of mine. If I open up like a, something that I do, you know, something very like complextro-y in, like, let me just, I'm just playing from iTunes for now, you know. So if you guys, you know, you guys will kind of hear the, actually, let me just make sure you can hear that, right? So like, you know, all of that stuff is being sidechained, right? Because there's so much going on, and it's kind of, you know, it's kind of intense. So what the sidechain does is it cuts those little holes for your drums to still come through clearly, you know, and it kind of creates like that pump effect on like the whole track, which is just, you know, it's kind of ideal for this kind of music, right? So by doing that, you can do this, you know, we're going to make that room for the drums. So you could do that with a, you could do this with a gross beat, or this is personally how I set this up, right? And this is a couple steps to get this working the right way. So let me know, you guys still with me here? Like I said, I'll put this up in a video later, so you guys can always come back to this. And I also outline this in a lesson on Torches Academy too, on the website. So I'll link that for you guys later on. Right, so basically, all right, here's the steps. There's 2 big things that we need here, right? And it's going to consist of the insert. Okay, nice. Heard you, Logan. All right, cool. So we got the 2 big steps here, which I'm even just gonna name this so we know what it is, right? Kick. We'll call it kick main because I know there were a couple, right? So it's going to require something on the kick main and something on our instrument bus, right? On kick main, we are going to put what is called the peak controller, fruity peak controller, right there, right? So all this is this is a controller that's taking the input off of the volume of your kick, right? So when I play the song, see that?
Lab.
See, so now this controller is reading the input of your kick there, right? So now that we have the controller here, you want to make sure it's unmuted too, because there's also a setting that will see mute your kick there, right? So now we're going to go over to the instrument bus, okay? So you can pretty much open up anything with a volume on it. That's why I like to use the Fruity Balance, because it's basically just we just have a volume knob here. That's all we need. You know, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that, right? So what we're going to do, and this is the big step, right? We're going to right click it and hit link to controller. Remember that controller that we put on insert one? So we're going to link to controller, okay? Now in internal controller, we're going to select, see, now we have, see the kick main section here? Here's our peak controller right there. There's the settings. So we want to link this to the peak, right? Now, right now, the mapping formula is just set, so it's going to follow, since it's following the input of your kick, it's going to follow the volume of your kick going up, right? But what we want to do is we want, see if this point is 0 and this point is 1, okay? That's kind of how this works. It goes from 0 and all the way up is 1, like binary, right? Yeah, I'm sure you guys kind of know what binary is when you're talking in computer code. You know, it's like 0 is off, 1 is on, right? So it goes, but this is kind of a more, you know, we have everything in between too, so we can work in decimal points. This is where there's a little bit of math involved, but you don't even have to worry about the math. All you have to remember is this formula. It's 0.8 minus input, right? Now what the 0.8 represents is that's what this volume is set at. See how it's at like 80%? Remember 0.8, you know, it goes from 0 to 1. So 0.8 is that point right there, right? And then we're subtracting the input of your kick, right? So when I hit accept, every time the kick goes off,
Lab.
see that? So now, every time your kick goes, it's going to cut that little hole out of everything that we have set to the instrument bus, right? Now again, that's a little bit tricky. If you guys ever forget, you know, I outlined that exact same thing in the sidechaining lesson on Torches Academy, so you can go back to that if you want, and I have it listed there. But honestly, you know, once, like, look how fast I can set this up, right? Like, once you get into the habit of doing it, it's really not that complicated, right? I'll go back. So we have kick main here, instrument bus here, right? Those are our two things. All we got to do is boom, peak controller. That's all set. Make sure it's not muted. Boom, here, Fruity Balance. Right click, link to controller, peak, formula, 0.8 minus input. Enter, accept. That's it. Simple as that. Takes 2 seconds, right? Now, if you ever wanted to sidechain something separately from this, you can just do that exact same thing, right? Like this guy we haven't sent to this bus yet, right? So we could even just do the same thing. If that's easier for you, you could just open up a balance on every one of these instruments, right? Same thing, right click, link to controller, peak controller, 0.8 minus input, compiled okay. Now, one thing that's important to mention too is if this remove conflicts button is on, you want to turn it off. Because basically what this does, if this is on, it only allows you to connect one thing to that controller, which means if I hit accept right now, it's going to unlink it from insert 50, right? So we want to make sure that's unlinked because we want to be able to connect multiple things to this controller, right? So now, if we look at this instrument the way we have it now, see, now it's doing what it's supposed to do. And basically, the idea is you want to you kind of want to sidechain probably most of these instruments, unless you have a specific reason not to. But essentially, it's just going to make more room for your drums and stuff, and it's kind of going to give it that pump that you want when you're listening to this kind of music, you know? Now, even if we go into the kick and we kind of shape this a little bit, because that feels a little bit like maybe a little too long of a sample almost. So I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit. And that's also going to tighten up our sidechain a bit. Now, you know, pretty much all this stuff. You know, a really easy way to do this would be anytime you see something pop up. There's one, that one. What I'm sort of doing is I'm just unmuting it as I go. I saw that one. Now I'm not going to sidechain the kick against the kick, right? Because that'd be kind of weird. But what you can do, all right. So now I have all this stuff unmuted, right? So I know which ones need to go to channel 50. I can just click on one, hold Control and Shift, and just click on all the ones I have unmuted, and I can select them all at the same time, and then just right-click, route to this track only. Boom. So now all these are all set. So you can see this little green line going over there. And then this green line goes down and out to the master. See, just like that. So now all of this stuff all that stuff is nice and sidechained now, right? So that's a cool little trick for doing dance music. You know, it adds a lot of and you can hear the difference. Like the more you use it, you know, the more things that are linked to it, the more you can kind of hear the effects, you know. Whereas if I try, like if I do this, so that's with it on and this is with it off. Obviously, it's, you know, it sounds a little bit similar, but you know, it just adds that little bit of extra oomph there, you know? But dude, overall, this track is a really, really great track. This is good. I like this a lot. See, so even all this stuff, you might want to sidechain these guys too. So you can send these over here, right? See, now, only other thing I might kind of change from a compositional standpoint, like, you know, we haven't really looked at composition at all in this one because it's mostly phenomenal already. It's very, very good. The one thing I noticed in this little section here is I might kind of change the way that the bass line is sort of interacting with these chords, you know? So I almost feel like, because these chords are doing some cool stuff here, you know? And I think it'd be kind of neat if maybe they kind of played off each other a little bit. Like, even if we save this pattern, right, we'll just make unique so we have a different version of it, just in case, you know, we don't like how it comes out and we want to change it. But kind of like just like we were doing last time, right? You look at what notes. So we have F sharp and A, right? And just kind of do your best to outline those a little bit. Let's see. So. See, so this is a little more. See, that kind of works with that, with this chord here a little bit better. And then even, you know, same thing, if we want to, so this goes for 4 times, right? We can kind of make this unique again. And all that's really happening here is it's moving in a very, because the same chord is happening on each of these notes, the same type of like 7 chord, we can even just pick this A, right? Same thing, we can just move this up to, chances are because the chords are moving in that way, the bass line can also just kind of follow it. And then even just like little finisher there, you know?
Louder. Lamb. Louder.
That's actually really neat. I kind of like
Lamb. Louder.
You know what you can even do if you wanted to do something like that, right? Operator 2 is kind of giving you that effect, right? So you could go to operator 2, go to volume, set mod X, and set that from 0 to 1, right? So that way we could turn this all the way up, and
Lamb. Louder.
that's kind of cool. I like that. And then even we could go to this mod X here, right click it, and create automation clip, and you could even fool around with that, right? So once it kind of gets to that point, like kind of neat that you have that built right into your lead here, right? It's kind of cool. Dude, I really like where this is going. This is really well done, this whole section here. Came out really good, dude. It's crazy, 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 crazy. You definitely got the right idea. Absolutely. Nice. So I'm kind of thinking, let's see. It's about 7:15 right now. Right, so we've been going for, what, maybe like an hour and 15 minutes. I'm kind of thinking, so Logan, I'll kind of leave it up to you. What do you think? We can maybe do one more, and then, you know, maybe it's not such a bad thing. We can save some of the other ones for, maybe we can do this more regularly, you know? Maybe we could do another one next week or in 2 weeks, whenever it feels good. And because I like doing this. I like doing the live streams and kind of helping you guys with your stuff. Sometimes we just don't really have that much to work on. Okay, so save. Okay, so you want to save this one, because this one is clam chowder, right? Yeah, this is the one we were just working on. So this will be, I'll save this as number 2, and I can send these back to you too. So just in case you want to look at some of the stuff we talked about, or if you want to make any of your own changes. Like I said, you don't have to use this stuff. You know, you can say, you know what, I don't really like what he did. I'm going to go in my own direction. That's totally cool. You know, my job is just to kind of give you ideas, you know. And that's sort of, you know, sort of what we're doing here. So yeah, all right, save this one as a new version. So I'll send you this one back. And what do you think? You want to do one more? Or do you want to save the other 2 for next time? Because I know watching these live streams for, you know, like an hour, 2 hours. Okay, thank you, Yoshi, let's do it. I know sometimes watching can be a little bit tiring too. You know, it's tough to sit here and watch for an hour or 2 hours at a time. Okay, so I don't have the delay llama plugin, it looks like. So we're gonna have to do without that, but it looks like everything else loaded in pretty okay. So I think we should be good there. All right, so we'll just listen to this and then we'll talk about it. I like what you did there. Nice. Nice, dude. That's solid. I like that a lot. That's really good, especially I really like this little drop into the last section there. It came out really good. So in this one, you know, I think, you know, the biggest thing that I noticed is I almost wanted to hear, so this guy right here, I almost wanted to hear him kind of moving around a little bit, right? So we kind of have it pretty much on C most of the time. See, and I think, honestly, I think the beat is phenomenal. I think the beat came out fantastic. I think, you know, one thing that I might have done is I really like this last section. I almost want to hear something being a little bit stronger. Now, like, I have a lot of, you know, I've been doing music production for a long time, so I have a lot of samples. But as far as like trap stuff goes, let's see if we can find like this is usually a pretty good pack. And that's another thing that you guys will get in time too, you know, is just looking online, searching for packs and stuff. Okay, maybe something like this, right? Just a very simple something on the 3, like that, to kind of dictate that. You'll hear what I mean, right? You know, so something like that to kind of, obviously that gets a little bit boring, just kind of doing the exact same thing. But if you kind of mix that in over time, you know, I think it would sound kind of cool. You know, so let's actually just let's select all of these guys. There we go. Just assign to free. Boom. There we go. So now we have everything on something there, you know. So I think my things that I might do to this one are just the mixing, you know, because I think, and again, you know, I personally noticed a big difference between the last one that you did. You know, that mix seemed like you spent a little bit more time on it. This one is, I mean, you just said it too, like you're still working on the beat. So obviously I totally understand that this is a work in progress, you know, but I noticed the difference, you know, between this one to the last one. So I think the mix will really help this along. And also I almost wanted to hear a little bit of variation in this pattern 3, right? And if we're going to be working off of C, again, we can kind of work in, I like to work in minor because I feel like a lot of modern music is in minor, especially electronic music. So again, we can even just take our little stamp, you know, minor, natural, and those are our notes right there, right? C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, right? Those are our notes. And we can even just build a little melody, even if we're just building it around the 1 chord. See? And then, you know, we might have to dip into some. But so this is all kind of revolving around C minor. Right? I added that one B flat there, right? That's the only thing that isn't in the triad, but just to keep it interesting, you know, but see that? And that makes it a lot more. And again, you know, that's just one option. There's 1,000 different options you can do there. But I feel like that kind of adds some, you know, keeps a little bit of movement in the melody there, a little bit, you know? So let's actually go back and we'll kind of do the same thing that we did last time, right? We'll bring everything down so we have some room to work up and room to work down. Right, now what I can do is you can, if you ever want to do that, you can double click and drag, see? Or you can also hold Control Shift and select things like that. But double clicking and dragging will just let you select all of these at a time, right? Then we can move them down a little bit, and then we'll start with the 808, right? Ooh, I like this sample. That's cool. That sounds nice. Now, you know, keep in mind too that sometimes things don't have to be, once you're stacking a lot of drums in here, you kind of have to decide which ones are going to be the more, I guess, you know, the more important ones, the more prominent ones, and which ones are going to sort of take a back seat a little bit. So like this one, I feel like I have this clap sitting a little bit behind this snare, a little bit quieter, you know, because I think both of them kind of going at the same time, they kind of stack pretty aggressively, you know. See, like this one especially, I kind of feel like that one adds some texture, but I feel like it works a little bit better taking a back seat, you know? So same deal, it's actually, you know, remember I'm gonna turn that ceiling all the way up so that it's not affecting the sound at all. Just so you guys can hear it. So this is the little thing that I added, right? But you know what? Just for the sake of keeping it to what was there, we'll mute that for now. Like we'll turn that all the way down. Turn that down a little bit. You can even, you know, some of the stuff you can even pan left and right a little bit to kind of try and make some space that way. Now, another thing, and Logan, I saw you kind of messing with some EQing, and EQing is actually very important down the line. And we haven't really talked about it that much today. I think it would be a great thing to talk about, maybe, you know, whether it be next stream or a couple streams, you know, we can work it in at some point or another. But EQing can be really important, but there's lots of other stuff that we can add too. Now, again, I have a lot of extra stuff here. But even like, so I can give you the link for it. These tal effects, these are all free, you know, and like even this reverb is one of my favorite reverbs. See how much like space that adds? Sounds kind of cool, you know? And we could do little things like that to kind of, you know, make the beat a little bit more, a little bigger and a little more interesting, you know? I also want to hear like, that's kind of a cool one. Now there's another thing we can do. Again, you know, some of these things that I'm just kind of glazing over quickly could be, you know, pretty much an entire lesson on, you know, in a live stream. But there's also something you can do. I noticed some of these Yoshi samples are coming in louder or quieter than the other ones, right? So if that's something that you want to moderate a little bit, there's an effect called, there's a plugin called a compressor, right? So I like to use this one a lot of the time because it's very basic. But it doesn't give you a visual, which I think a visual really helps to kind of understand what a compressor does. So we'll use a limiter actually, and that's what we have on the master too. Now a limiter is essentially a type of compressor. A limiter is like an absolute compressor in the sense that, so when we play this, right, we're gonna see the Yoshi audio. Let's get to a part where it's actually coming in. So see how this sample is going way up here and this one is kind of all the way down here, and there's a little bit of a difference there in volume, right? You notice how when this sample goes above the ceiling line, it gets knocked down, right? So this little, oh, here actually we lost the visual. So let's go back to where the Yoshi is. So now that you have kind of a, now that we have sort of a more blown up version of this, right? So you can see how this purple line is what the sound was originally, and the white line is what the limiter knocked it down to, right? So that's pretty much showing you what it was and now what it is after the limiter, okay? So basically what this does is a compressor takes sound and it reduces what's called the dynamic range, right? The range of volume. See, this one is way down here and this one is way up here. You know, if I bring the ceiling down even more, see, now we have this green line where none of the sound is going to be able to pass that green line. Right? So now we have a lot more going on here. So remember, like the purple blob is what it was, right? And the white blob is now what it is, right? So that's pretty much what a limiter is. But what it does is a limiter, the difference between a limiter and a compressor is the fact that a limiter has a ceiling that the sound cannot pass through at all whatsoever, right? So see where this little green ceiling is, and notice how none of the white blob is passing that green at all, right? It's a hard ceiling that nothing can pass through, right? A compressor is the exact same thing, but you can control, you can actually allow the sound to pass the ceiling, and you can control how hard you want the compressor to knock it down when it passes the ceiling. So it's actually, see, it works pretty much the exact same way. And you know, we'll talk about compression another time, because I think that's a conversation that, you know, we could spend a whole hour, I mean, probably a lot more than that, talking about compression, because there's a lot you can do with it, right? But essentially, that's kind of how it works. If you need a very, very quick solution to something like this, right, where you're like, oh, well, that one Yoshi sample is kind of louder than the other one, right? You just find where the sound is, right? And you kind of bring, okay, Logan, we'll actually wrap up right after this. That sounds good. See? See, and this is kind of keeping everything together there, right? So you know what? That'll be the last thing we'll talk about today, because I don't want to, like I said, I know watching for kind of a long time is just as hard as it is to, you know, actually do these. So, and we have plenty of time. You know, we could do this again. We could do this again next week, and we can keep talking about stuff. Maybe you'll have some new music by then too, right? So yeah, you know what we'll do is I'll save this as a new version. And Logan, I'll send these back to you. All right, and we'll talk about when we're gonna do this again. All right, so I'll probably talk to you. I'll talk to you guys in the Discord now. So I'll cut the stream now. All right.